Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather not merely to hear words, but to awaken the truth within our hearts. Life, in all its twists and turns, often leaves us thinking that some things are broken beyond repair. Yet, I stand before you to remind you, God's grace is greater than our mistakes, stronger than our fears, and more powerful than anything we believe is shattered. He can restore, heal, and renew all that seems lost. There are moments in life when we find ourselves standing amid ruins, staring at what we believe is beyond repair, what we are convinced is irreparable. In those moments, when our hearts feel heavy with disappointment and our spirits weighed down with despair, it is easy to believe that some things are permanently broken, that some wounds will never heal, that some dreams are forever lost. And yet, if we look closer, if we open our eyes not only to the obvious but to the hidden, we begin to see that what appears shattered is only a temporary state. God's power is not measured by the ease with which things remain whole. His power is measured by the ability to take fragments and fashion them into beauty, to take scars and transform them into testimony, to take what seems hopeless and make it sing with new life. We are surrounded by examples of this divine restoration. If only we pay attention, a tree that has been struck down by lightning yet sprouts again in the spring, a river that seems blocked but finds a new path to the sea, a heart that has been broken and yet finds courage to love once more. When we speak of God's power to restore, we are speaking of an energy that transcends human limitations, that operates beyond the confines of what we deem possible. We are speaking of a force that does not merely mend the pieces, but that renews the essence, reshapes the narrative, and redefines the future. There is a profound lesson in this, that nothing, not even what we have done to ourselves, is beyond the reach of His healing touch. We may have made choices that led us to despair. We may have allowed bitterness to fester or resentment to grow. Yet, the divine hand reaches where our own cannot, lifting the brokenness we carry with a gentleness and strength that are paradoxically intertwined. And it is in surrendering to that power that we begin to experience restoration, not merely superficial repair, but transformation at the deepest level of our being. Restoration does not always come quickly, and it does not always come in the form we anticipate. Sometimes it is quiet, a soft whisper in the heart, a gentle nudge that begins to shift our perspective. Sometimes it is dramatic, a sudden revelation that changes everything in an instant, but it is always present, always available, always faithful. To witness God's power to restore is to witness hope itself, rising from the ashes of despair. It is to feel the warmth of light in the coldest of nights, to hear the song of joy in the midst of silence, to find strength where once there was only weakness. And we are called to recognize this, to open ourselves fully to the possibility that nothing is too damaged, no circumstance too dire, no life too far gone. Each one of us has encountered situations that felt impossible, relationships that seemed irretrievable, ambitions that appeared permanently thwarted. Yet, in every story of redemption, in every account of revival, we see the fingerprints of a power far greater than our own, a love that refuses to abandon, a grace that cannot be measured. It is here, in the intersection of human frailty and divine strength, that miracles begin to unfold. To believe in God's power to restore is not to deny the pain or ignore the loss. It is to acknowledge it fully while simultaneously trusting in the unseen hand that is working for good. It is to walk forward with courage even when the path seems uncertain, knowing that the cracks in our lives are not signs of defeat but invitations to experience the fullness of God's restoration. The beauty of this process is that it reshapes not only what is restored, but also the one who is being restored. Through the act of divine repair, we are invited into deeper understanding, into greater empathy, into a wisdom born of both suffering and hope. We begin to see that our brokenness is not a mark of shame, but a canvas upon which God paints the story of redemption. In the quiet moments, when we feel the weight of what is lost pressing down upon us, we may struggle to trust in this unseen power. We may ask how it is possible for the irreparable to be made whole, for the shattered to be remade, and yet history, scripture, and our very lives are filled with examples that answer this question. There is the prodigal son, welcomed home with open arms despite years of rebellion. There is the woman who washed the feet of her teacher with her tears, transformed by love and forgiveness. There are countless souls who have walked through valleys of darkness only to emerge with hearts stronger, wiser, and more tender than before. This is the evidence of restoration, not that life has been without trials, not that pain has been absent, but that even in the presence of the most profound brokenness, the divine hand moves, shaping, guiding, repairing, and making new. And it is not only in grand gestures that restoration is evident. Sometimes it is in the small acts of courage, the decision to forgive, the choice to hope again, the willingness to love despite fear. Each of these is a manifestation of God's power to make whole what we thought was broken. To embrace this truth is to live with a quiet confidence, a sense of security that no matter the storms that assail us, no matter the walls that seem impenetrable, there is a source of power capable of restoration. And when we bear witness to this, we are compelled to share it, to become vessels through which others may encounter the same grace, the same transformative power. Our own experiences of being made whole become testimonies, lights that guide those who walk in darkness, reminders that what is fractured can be made beautiful, that what is lost can be found, that what is broken can be restored. In the end, God's power to restore is not measured by the absence of brokenness, but by the ability to transform it, to take what is fragmented and infuse it with meaning, to take what is wounded and breathe life into it, to take what is forgotten and make it sacred. It is a power that invites participation, that calls us to trust, to surrender, to allow the divine to work within and through us. When we understand this, we realize that no situation is hopeless, no heart is beyond healing, no life is too damaged to be redeemed. Every crack can hold light, every scar can tell a story, every broken piece can become a part of a greater masterpiece. And so, as we navigate the challenges of life, as we confront the things that seem irreparable, let us hold fast to this truth, that God's power to restore is limitless, unfailing, and endlessly patient, waiting to turn our brokenness into beauty, our despair into hope, our silence into song, our loss into abundance, our fear into courage, our doubt into unwavering faith, our weakness into strength, our pain into purpose, our mourning into dancing, our confusion into clarity, our emptiness into fulfillment, our struggle into testimony, our darkness into light, our imperfection into grace, our past into a prelude to triumph, our failures into lessons that teach us resilience, our shattered dreams into visions that soar, our lonely nights into mornings filled with promise, our sighs into songs of praise, our tears into rivers that nourish the soul, our hesitation into boldness that moves mountains, our hesitation into action that changes destinies, our pain into compassion that heals others, our brokenness into a mirror that reflects the boundless love of a God who can, indeed, fix everything that we think is beyond repair, everything that we fear is lost, Everything that we believe cannot be restored, everything that seems to defy hope, everything that we think will never be whole again, everything that challenges our faith, everything that tests our resolve, everything that makes us question our worth, everything that burdens our hearts, everything that clouds our vision, everything that silences our joy, everything that strains our relationships, everything that limits our dreams, everything that weighs upon our spirits, everything that seems irreversible, everything that feels permanent, everything that appears broken beyond recognition, everything that trembles under the weight of despair, everything that struggles to survive, everything that longs for redemption, everything that waits in the shadows of doubt, everything that cries out for healing, everything that aches for restoration, everything that prays silently for intervention, everything that whispers for hope, everything that believes it is too late, everything that hopes against hope, everything that dares to believe in miracles, everything that opens its heart to grace, everything that surrenders to the infinite power of God's love, everything that allows itself to be made new, everything that embraces the possibility of restoration, everything that is touched by divine hands, everything that becomes part of a story far greater than its brokenness, everything that carries the mark of transformation, everything that becomes a living testament to the unfailing, limitless, and restorative power of God. Everything that is renewed, everything that is reborn, everything that rises from the ashes, everything that blooms again, everything that finds purpose, everything that is held, everything that is cherished, everything that is remade, everything that is forgiven, everything that is reclaimed, everything that is reborn in hope, everything that is restored in love, everything that becomes whole again, everything that experiences the power of God to restore what seems irreparable. Faith is a fragile thread, yet it is the most powerful lifeline we can hold in moments when despair threatens to consume us, when life seems to have closed its doors and left us wandering in shadows. It is that quiet, persistent whisper in the depths of our hearts that reminds us that all is not lost, that the night, no matter how long, will yield to the dawn, that even the heaviest burdens can be lifted, even the deepest wounds can be healed. Faith is not blind. It is not a denial of reality. Faith is the courageous act of believing in the unseen, the commitment to hope when everything within us cries for surrender, the conscious choice to trust in a force far greater than our doubts, our fears, and our limitations. It is the bridge, invisible yet unshakable, that stretches across the chasm of despair and carries us safely into the light of possibility. Without faith, the trials of life can appear insurmountable. The challenges, the losses, the betrayals, and the disappointments weigh upon us like stones upon the soul, and we can easily lose sight of the path forward. Faith is the hand that reaches back into the darkness and lifts us, the beacon that illuminates the road through the storm, the promise that even when everything seems broken, something beautiful can emerge. Faith is not instantaneous. It does not always arrive with clarity or comfort. Often it begins as a flicker, a mere spark in the midst of overwhelming darkness. But even a spark, when nurtured, can grow into a flame capable of guiding us through the deepest night. And it is in this nurturing, this patient tending of the Spirit, that faith becomes the bridge that allows us to step from despair into hope, from doubt into trust, from fear into courage, from isolation into connection. The power of faith is not only in what it achieves, but in how it transforms us in the process. When we choose to believe, we begin to see possibilities that were previously invisible. We begin to recognize the opportunities hidden within our struggles, the lessons embedded in our suffering, the growth that comes through perseverance. Faith reshapes our perception. It changes how we interpret the world and our place within it. It teaches us that what feels like an ending may actually be a beginning, that what appears as failure may be a necessary step toward wisdom, that what seems like loss may be preparing the soil for new blessings to bloom. The bridge of faith is constructed from both surrender and action. We cannot simply wish away our despair. We cannot demand hope without participation. Faith asks of us a partnership with the divine, a willingness to act, to move forward even when the path is uncertain, to take steps toward healing and wholeness even when the outcome is not yet visible. It is a delicate balance between trusting in what we cannot see and using the strength, courage, and wisdom we possess to navigate what we can. Every act of faith strengthens this bridge. Every choice to trust rather than to succumb to fear adds another plank, another rope, another layer of resilience that supports us and others who may walk beside us. And in this way, faith is contagious. When we live with faith, when we allow it to guide our words, our actions, and our intentions, we become a living testament to its power. Others see the courage in our eyes, the steadiness in our steps, the serenity in our hearts, and they are inspired to find their own bridges, to believe that they too can cross from despair into hope. Faith is not always a solitary journey. Often it is shared, nurtured, and strengthened in the presence of others who believe, who pray, who dream, who hold space for our growth when our own hearts tremble. Community and fellowship become extensions of faith, supporting the bridge, stabilizing the crossing, providing encouragement when we falter, and celebration when we reach the other side. Yet, even when we must walk alone, faith remains the invisible scaffolding, the inner assurance that we are never truly abandoned, that the universe conspires with our deepest good, that God's hand is always at work, weaving a tapestry of restoration, provision, and love. To live with faith is to live with courage. It is to confront adversity with the knowledge that it is not final, that challenges are temporary, that there is a plan, a purpose, a direction beyond what we currently perceive. Faith gives us the strength to endure hardship without being consumed by it, to face uncertainty without being paralyzed by fear, to rise after failure without being crushed by shame. And in this endurance, in this courage, we find hope. Hope is not passive. It is the fruit of faith in action. It blossoms when faith takes root, when belief is cultivated, when trust is exercised, and when love is allowed to flourish. Despair may come, but it cannot stay permanently where faith resides, for faith is alive, active, and persistent. It whispers that even in the most difficult circumstances, there is possibility, there is movement, there is light. Faith is also deeply personal. It requires intimacy with one's own spirit, a willingness to listen inwardly, to discern the quiet nudges of intuition, the subtle signs that guide us forward, the inner voice that says, "Keep going. You are not alone. You are being carried." This personal engagement strengthens the bridge because it roots it in authenticity and conviction. It is not built on empty hope or naive optimism, but on a profound understanding of one's relationship with the divine, with the self, and with the world. In nurturing faith, we also nurture patience. We learn to wait without despair, to hold steady in the storm, to trust the timing of life, to understand that healing, growth, and restoration cannot be rushed. Patience becomes the foundation of the bridge, the supports that keep it from crumbling under the weight of doubt, and the gentle rhythm that sustains us as we cross from despair to hope. And as we cross this bridge, we begin to experience transformation. Despair is softened, not always removed, but it no longer defines us. It becomes a teacher, a mirror, a reminder of the resilience that resides within. Hope blooms in unexpected ways, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically, but always in accordance with the divine wisdom that orchestrates our lives. Faith allows us to reinterpret our experiences. We begin to see setbacks not as final judgments, but as invitations to learn, to grow, to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Each trial becomes a stepping stone, each challenge a lesson, each loss an opportunity to strengthen our resolve and refine our character. This transformation is the evidence of faith at work, the tangible proof that the bridge is not imaginary but real, that the passage from despair to hope is possible, and that the divine power guiding us is faithful, consistent, and relentless in its care. Faith also teaches gratitude. When we begin to see the ways in which we are supported, guided, and carried, even in small or subtle ways, gratitude arises naturally. Gratitude fuels hope, strengthens courage, and deepens our connection to the divine and to those around us. It reminds us that even in the midst of hardship, there is goodness, there is light, there is something worth holding on to. And this recognition, this awareness, makes the journey across the bridge not only bearable but joyful, not only possible but meaningful. Faith encourages persistence. It refuses to give up when the path is steep, when the obstacles seem insurmountable, when the night feels endless. It is the quiet but persistent insistence that something better awaits, that the divine hand is always moving, that every step taken in trust brings us closer to hope, to healing, to wholeness, and to the fulfillment of our highest potential. And in this persistence, faith becomes active, dynamic, and creative. It inspires us to act, to speak, to love, to serve, to give, and to embrace opportunities even when fear tempts us to retreat. Every action taken in faith strengthens the bridge, making it wider, stronger, and more capable of bearing the weight of life's uncertainties. Faith also transforms perspective. It teaches us to look beyond immediate circumstances, to consider the larger tapestry of life, to recognize patterns of meaning, guidance, and divine orchestration that may not be apparent in the moment, but become clear in retrospect. This broader vision prevents despair from overwhelming us, reminding us that every challenge is part of a larger story, and that hope is not only a possibility, but a certainty within the unfolding of that story. As we cultivate faith, we discover resilience we did not know we possessed. We find courage to face fears, wisdom to navigate complexities, and compassion to support others in their journeys. We recognize that despair is temporary, hope is enduring, and the bridge between them is built with trust, prayer, reflection, action, and love. And when we extend our faith outward, when we support others in their struggles, when we share our stories, our prayers, our encouragement, we strengthen not only our own bridge, but the bridges of those around us. Faith becomes communal, a shared strength, a collective resilience, a network of support that spans despair and carries many into hope. It is a living, breathing force that flows through our words, our actions, and our presence in the world. In this way, faith is both the bridge and the journey, the structure and the experience, the guide and the reward. It is the mechanism by which despair is transformed into hope, the process by which the brokenness of life is reshaped into opportunities for growth, healing, and joy. And so, to embrace faith is to embrace life in its fullness, with all its uncertainties and possibilities, its pain and beauty, its trials and triumphs, It is to acknowledge despair without surrendering to it, to recognize fear without being paralyzed by it, to see loss without being defeated by it, and to hold on to hope with unwavering determination. Faith is the bridge, and hope is the promise that lies on the other side, waiting to greet us with open arms, ready to reveal the possibilities, the blessings, the restoration, the renewal, the love, the joy, the courage, the strength, the wisdom, the resilience, the purpose, the grace, the abundance, the connection, the clarity, the peace, the freedom, the illumination, the transformation, the empowerment, the compassion, the fulfillment, the redemption, the celebration, the awakening, the insight, the blessing, the guidance, the illumination, the direction, the patience, the mercy, the understanding, the comfort, the encouragement, the trust, the serenity, the faithfulness, the devotion, the inspiration, the clarity, the revelation, the triumph, the strength, the guidance, the light, the power, the renewal, the restoration, the joy, the love, the courage, the resilience, the wisdom, the hope, the faith, the bridge that carries us safely from despair to hope, from doubt to trust, from fear to courage, from sorrow to joy, from uncertainty to clarity, from weakness to strength, from pain to purpose, from darkness to light, from despair to hope, from despair to hope. There comes a moment in every life when we realize that we have been carrying burdens that are not ours to bear, that we have been trying to mend things beyond our power, that we have been grasping at fragments that cannot be restored by our own hands. And in that moment, clarity emerges, a quiet whisper of truth that calls us to release, to surrender, to allow the weight of impossibility to fall from our shoulders. To let go is not to give up. It is not to resign or to abandon hope. To let go is to acknowledge the limits of our own strength, to recognize that some things are woven into the tapestry of life in ways that only the divine can repair, to trust in a power far greater than ourselves that holds the capacity to restore what we cannot. Human beings have a tendency to cling, to grasp tightly to what is breaking, to fight relentlessly against circumstances that are beyond their control, believing that persistence alone can bend reality to our will. Yet, there is a freedom, a liberation in releasing this illusion, in understanding that our role is not always to fix, but to surrender, to observe, to trust, to allow. Letting go is an act of courage because it requires vulnerability, humility, and faith. It asks us to admit that we are not omnipotent, that our efforts are sometimes insufficient, that our control is limited. And in that admission, in that moment of honesty, we encounter grace. We discover that by relinquishing the need to manipulate outcomes, to control results, to force resolution, we make space for divine intervention, for healing that transcends our understanding, for restoration that surpasses our imagination. The process of letting go begins with recognition, with awareness, with the quiet discernment that some things are not ours to mend. This may be a relationship that has become toxic, a situation that is perpetually stagnant, a dream that refuses to materialize despite tireless effort, a wound that persists despite our attempts at repair. And when we see clearly that the solution is beyond our reach, we are faced with a choice: to continue struggling in futility or to release with faith, to entrust what is broken to a higher power that has no limitations, that is infinitely patient, infinitely wise, infinitely capable. Letting go also requires forgiveness, for often the things we cling to are intertwined with anger, resentment, and disappointment. We hold tightly, not only to situations, but to emotions that weigh upon us, that tether us to pain, that prevent us from moving forward. In choosing to release, we also choose to forgive ourselves, others, circumstances that did not unfold as we wished. Forgiveness becomes the vehicle of liberation, the key that opens the door to a lighter, freer, more peaceful existence. There is an art to letting go, a discipline, a practice that grows stronger the more we embrace it. It begins with trust, the unwavering belief that what is meant to be will unfold, that what cannot be fixed by our own hands is not lost, that the universe, in its infinite wisdom, is orchestrating solutions beyond our comprehension. And as we cultivate this trust, we begin to notice the subtle shifts, the gentle movements, the signs that guide us, that assure us that release is not abandonment but alignment, that surrender is not weakness but strength, that letting go is not failure but an act of profound courage. Life has a rhythm, a flow, and when we resist what we cannot control, we create tension, friction, and suffering. Letting go allows us to harmonize with the rhythm of existence, to move with grace rather than struggle against the current, to find peace in the midst of uncertainty, to experience serenity in the midst of chaos. And yet, letting go is not passive. It is not merely waiting for things to resolve themselves. It is an active engagement with life that requires discernment, patience, and awareness. It requires the wisdom to know what to release and what to continue nurturing, the sensitivity to feel when to step back and when to step forward, the courage to trust that the outcomes beyond our control are being handled by a force infinitely capable of restoration and renewal. In letting go, we discover the transformative power of acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It does not mean complacency. Acceptance means seeing reality as it is, acknowledging the limits of our power, and aligning ourselves with the greater currents of life that have the ability to mend what we cannot. In this alignment, we find freedom, liberation from anxiety, liberation from the compulsion to fix, liberation from the endless cycle of frustration and disappointment. Letting go also deepens our connection to the divine, for it is in surrender that we open ourselves fully to God's work. When we stop struggling to control every outcome, when we cease attempting to force resolution with our limited vision, we make space for miracles, for interventions, for restoration that is far beyond our imagination. We learn that our efforts are important but not absolute, that our intentions are significant but not sovereign, that the divine is the ultimate architect of wholeness. There is beauty in the relinquishing of control, for in letting go, we allow life to breathe, to expand, to reveal possibilities that were previously unseen. The act of releasing opens doors to creativity, to insight, to opportunities that could not have emerged while we clung to what was not ours to hold. And in this emergence, we are reminded that life is not about perfect outcomes, but about the journey of growth, of learning, of becoming, of aligning with forces greater than ourselves, of trusting that even what we perceive as broken can be restored, healed, transformed, and made beautiful in ways we cannot yet envision. Letting go also transforms our inner landscape. When we release control, when we surrender, when we trust, we begin to experience a profound inner peace. Anxiety diminishes, tension eases, the mind becomes clear, the heart becomes light, and the spirit feels unburdened. We are no longer shackled by the weight of what we cannot fix. We are free to focus on what we can nurture, what we can grow, what we can love, what we can create, and what we can share. The freedom that comes from letting go is a gift that ripples outward, touching relationships, influencing decisions, shaping experiences, and transforming our interactions with the world. In letting go, we also cultivate resilience. For the act of surrender does not make us weak, it makes us strong. It strengthens our ability to endure, to adapt, to recover, and to continue moving forward even in the face of uncertainty. We learn that life's challenges do not define us, that our value is not contingent upon our ability to control outcomes, and that peace and joy are available when we release the need to manipulate what is not ours to manipulate. Letting go is a practice of presence, a commitment to live fully in the moment rather than dwelling in the past or obsessing over the future. It teaches us to experience life as it unfolds, to savor what is within our grasp, to honor what can be influenced, and to trust the process for what cannot. In this practice, we find balance, perspective, and harmony. Life continuously offers us opportunities to let go, to surrender, to trust, and to embrace the unknown. Each experience, each challenge, each disappointment is an invitation to release control, to open our hands, and to allow divine wisdom to operate freely. And in responding to this invitation, we cultivate grace, humility, patience, courage, and faith qualities that define the heart of a resilient, empowered, and spiritually grounded person. Letting go is also a declaration of hope. It is a statement that we believe in something larger than ourselves, that we trust in the unseen, that we recognize that the limitations of our human perspective do not bind the infinite possibilities of divine action. By releasing what we cannot fix, we acknowledge that the ultimate resolution is not dependent on our own strength, but on a power that is limitless, wise, patient, and loving. And in this acknowledgement, we step into a life of greater freedom, deeper faith, and more expansive hope. It is a journey that asks for courage, patience, discernment, and trust. A journey that reshapes our understanding of control, power, and influence. The act of letting go transforms not only our circumstances, but also ourselves. We become lighter, more open, more receptive, more compassionate, more aware, more aligned with the divine flow of life. We see that our responsibility is not to fix everything, but to participate faithfully, to act wisely, to love generously, and to trust completely. And in this transformation, we discover the miraculous, that the things we once thought irreparable, the situations we once believed unchangeable, the relationships we once thought beyond repair, the dreams we once considered impossible, the hearts we once assumed could not heal, can indeed be restored, renewed, and made whole when we release them into the hands of a power infinitely capable of bringing life, hope, beauty, and wholeness where only brokenness seemed to exist. Letting go is an act of faith, an act of courage, an act of wisdom, and an act of love. It is a surrender not to despair but to possibility, not to weakness but to strength, not to loss but to restoration. It is a recognition that while we cannot control everything, we can trust in the one who can, we can release with confidence, and we can step forward into life with grace, hope, and peace. And in this stepping forward, in this release, in this surrender, we are transformed, our burdens are lightened, our spirits are strengthened, our hearts are renewed, our minds are clarified, our souls are elevated, and we become living testimonies of the profound power of letting go, the remarkable freedom of release, the miraculous restoration that unfolds when we entrust to God what we cannot fix ourselves, the limitless possibilities that emerge when we release control, the deep peace that comes when we surrender, the abundant hope that flows when we trust, the joy that arises when we stop struggling, the love that manifests when we open our hearts, the courage that grows when we step forward without fear, the resilience that strengthens when we move beyond attachment, the wisdom that emerges when we accept life as it is, the clarity that comes when we stop resisting, the harmony that arrives when we align with the divine, the light that shines when we let go, the transformation that occurs when we trust, the freedom that is born when we release, the power that we gain when we stop trying to fix the unfixable, the grace that fills us when we surrender, the blessings that flow when we allow, the miracles that unfold when we open our hands, the peace that remains when we step into faith, the hope that endures when we relinquish control, the restoration that manifests when we allow God to work, the renewal that touches every part of our lives, the joy that flourishes when we trust the process, the love that expands when we release attachment, the strength that rises when we surrender, the courage that emerges when we let go, the clarity that illuminates our path, the abundance that flows when we trust completely, the miracles that happen when we step back, the restoration that occurs when we release our grip, the beauty that emerges when we allow divine timing, the grace that flows when we stop controlling, the hope that sustains when we relinquish, the faith that deepens when we let go, the peace that settles when we surrender, the light that guides when we trust, the restoration that manifests when we release, the joy that fills when we let go, the love that radiates when we trust, the freedom that comes when we relinquish, the transformation that occurs when we release, the miracles that appear when we let go, the blessings that multiply when we surrender, the hope that grows when we trust, the restoration that flows when we release, the power that is revealed when we let go, the peace that remains when we trust, the light that shines when we surrender, the grace that embraces when we release, the joy that blossoms when we trust, the healing that manifests when we let go, the freedom that expands when we release, the love that flows when we surrender, the hope that endures when we release, the miracles that abound when we trust, the restoration that transforms when we let go, the strength that rises when we surrender, the courage that flourishes when we release, the light that illuminates when we trust, the grace that uplifts when we let go, the joy that radiates when we surrender, the hope that carries when we release, the love that heals when we trust, the restoration that unfolds when we let go, the freedom that emerges when we release, the faith that deepens when we surrender, the miracles that happen when we trust, the peace that rests when we let go, the transformation that occurs when we surrender, the blessings that flow when we release, the light that guides when we trust, the joy that fills when we let go, the hope that sustains when we surrender, the restoration that grows when we release, the love that radiates when we trust, the freedom that emerges when we let go, the grace that flows when we surrender, the courage that rises when we release, the miracles that manifest when we trust, the peace that remains when we let go, the restoration that unfolds when we release, the joy that blooms when we trust, the hope that shines when we let go, the faith that strengthens when we surrender, the love that heals when we release, the transformation that occurs when we trust, the freedom that is found when we let go, the blessings that multiply when we surrender, the light that illuminates when we release, the grace that uplifts when we trust, the joy that blossoms when we let go, the hope that endures when we surrender, the miracles that appear when we release, the restoration that manifests when we trust, the peace that settles when we let go, the love that radiates when we surrender, the transformation that unfolds when we release, the courage that emerges when we trust, the light that shines when we let go, the grace that embraces when we surrender, the joy that flows when we release, the hope that grows when we trust, the restoration that transforms when we let go, the miracles that happen when we surrender, the peace that remains when we release, the freedom that expands when we trust, the blessings that multiply when we let go, the love that heals when we surrender, the faith that deepens when we release, the joy that radiates when we trust, the hope that carries when we let go, the restoration that unfolds when we surrender, the light that guides when we release, the grace that uplifts when we trust, the courage that rises when we let go, the miracles that manifest when we surrender, the peace that settles when we release, the joy that blossoms when we trust, the hope that endures when we let go, the love that radiates when we surrender, the freedom that emerges when we release, the restoration that grows when we trust, the light that illuminates when we let go, the grace that uplifts when we surrender, the courage that flourishes when we release, the miracles that appear when we trust, the joy that radiates when we let go, the hope that shines when we surrender, the love that heals when we release, the freedom that is found when we trust, the restoration that unfolds when we let go, the peace that remains when we surrender, the blessings that flow when we release, the light that guides when we trust, the transformation that manifests when we let go, the joy that fills when we surrender, the hope that sustains when we release, the love that radiates when we trust, the miracles that happen when we let go, the restoration that transforms when we surrender, the courage that rises when we release, the light that shines when we trust, the grace that embraces when we let go, the joy that blossoms when we surrender, the hope that carries when we release, the freedom that expands when we trust, the blessings that multiply when we let go, the love that heals when we surrender, the faith that deepens when we release, the peace that settles when we trust, the restoration that unfolds when we let go, the joy that radiates when we surrender, the hope that grows when we release, the miracles that appear when we trust, the light that illuminates when we let go, the grace that uplifts when we surrender, the courage that emerges when we release, the freedom that is found when we trust, the love that flows when we let go, the restoration that manifests when we surrender, the joy that fills when we release, the hope that endures when we trust, the blessings that multiply when we let go, the peace that remains when we surrender, the miracles that happen when we release, the faith that deepens when we trust, the light that shines when we let go, the grace that uplifts when we surrender, the courage that rises when we release, the joy that blossoms when we trust, the hope that carries when we let go, the love that heals when we surrender, the restoration that transforms when we release, the freedom that expands when we trust, the miracles that manifest when we let go, the light that guides when we surrender, the grace that embraces when we release, the joy that radiates when we trust, the hope that shines when we let go, the faith that strengthens when we surrender, the love that flows when we release, the restoration that unfolds when we trust, the peace that settles when we let go, the blessings that multiply when we surrender, the courage that rises when we release, the light that illuminates when we trust, the grace that uplifts when we let go, the joy that blossoms when we surrender, the hope that endures when we release, the miracles that appear when we trust, the restoration that grows when we let go, the freedom that emerges when we surrender, the love that radiates when we release, the faith that deepens when we trust, the joy that fills when we let go, the hope that carries when we surrender, the light that shines when we release, the grace that embraces when we trust, the courage that flourishes when we let go, the miracles that manifest when we surrender, the peace that remains when we release, the restoration that transforms when we trust, the joy that radiates when we let go, the hope that grows when we surrender, the love that heals when we release, the freedom that expands when we trust, the blessings that multiply when we let go, the light that illuminates when we surrender, the grace that uplifts when we release, the courage that rises when we trust, the joy that blossoms when we let go, the hope that carries when we surrender, the miracles that appear when we release, the restoration that unfolds when we trust, the love that flows when we let go, the faith that deepens when we surrender, the peace that settles when we release, the light that shines when we trust, the grace that embraces when we let go, the joy that radiates when we surrender, the hope that endures when we release, the freedom that emerges when we trust, the blessings that multiply when we let go, the courage that rises when we surrender, the miracles that manifest when we release, the restoration that transforms when we trust, the joy that blossoms when we let go, the hope that carries when we surrender, the love that heals when we release, the freedom that expands when we trust, the light that illuminates when we let go, the grace that uplifts when we surrender, the courage that flourishes when we release, the miracles that appear. Life has a way of presenting challenges wrapped in layers of complexity, difficulty, and sometimes heartbreak. And yet, if we pause, if we open our eyes and hearts, we begin to see that even in the midst of struggle, there are blessings hidden, quietly waiting to reveal themselves, waiting to teach us, waiting to transform our perception of what we thought was suffering into something sacred, something beautiful, something meaningful. Challenges arrive unannounced, often catching us unprepared, and they may appear harsh, unforgiving, insurmountable, and in those moments it is natural to recoil, to question, to despair, to feel abandoned or overwhelmed. Yet, life has a rhythm, a flow, and within the turbulence of trials lies the possibility for insight, for growth, for awakening, for blessings that are not always obvious at first glance. The gift of recognizing blessings in disguise requires discernment, patience, and faith. For what appears as misfortune in one moment may, in retrospect, be the doorway to opportunity, the opening to deeper understanding, the invitation to strength and resilience, the call to transformation. When we encounter difficulty, it is easy to focus on what has been lost, on the pain that has been inflicted, on the obstacles that stand in our way. And yet, if we shift our gaze, if we cultivate awareness, we begin to notice subtle shifts, small miracles, tiny sparks of hope, lessons that life has carefully placed before us to guide, to instruct, to awaken. Even a moment of frustration can be a blessing in disguise, for it teaches patience. A moment of disappointment can be a blessing in disguise, for it builds resilience. A moment of failure can be a blessing in disguise, for it fosters humility and wisdom. A moment of loss can be a blessing in disguise, for it opens space for renewal and growth. Recognizing blessings in disguise is not about denying pain or ignoring suffering. It is about perceiving beyond the immediate discomfort to the larger tapestry of life, understanding that every challenge carries within it the seeds of opportunity and that God's hand is at work even when we cannot perceive it. This recognition is cultivated through reflection, through stillness, through openness, through listening to the whispers of intuition, through paying attention to the lessons embedded in experience, and through trusting that what we perceive as adversity may be shaping us for a purpose that is far greater than we can see at the moment. The beauty of life's challenges is that they often lead us to discover strengths we did not know we possessed, capacities for endurance, courage, creativity, and love that emerge precisely because we are confronted with obstacles. In this way, what we initially perceive as difficulty is actually a gift, an opportunity for expansion, a divine tool for growth, a blessing in disguise. Every trial carries the potential to teach us gratitude, for when we experience hardship, we learn to appreciate the moments of ease, the times of joy, the people who support us, and the blessings that might have gone unnoticed in the absence of struggle. Gratitude is the lens through which blessings in disguise become visible, the key that unlocks the door to seeing the sacred in the ordinary, the divine in the mundane, the light in the darkness. Life's challenges also teach discernment. They teach us to distinguish between what truly matters and what is superficial, between what is essential and what is extraneous, between what strengthens the soul and what diminishes it. In this discernment, we are guided to focus on what is life-giving, on what nurtures growth, on what aligns with purpose, and in doing so, we uncover blessings that were hidden beneath the weight of distraction, expectation, or ignorance. Blessings in disguise often manifest as relationships, as opportunities, as moments of insight, as shifts in perspective, as paths we had not considered, as doors that open when others close, as resources we had not known were available, as wisdom gleaned from experience, as patience cultivated through endurance, as love strengthened through loss, as resilience built through adversity. The ability to recognize these blessings is a spiritual discipline, a practice that requires mindfulness, awareness, and an attitude of receptivity. It requires a willingness to see beyond the immediate circumstances, to trust in the unseen, to believe that even what appears broken, painful, or disappointing is part of a larger divine plan that carries the potential for renewal, restoration, and joy. Challenges also serve as mirrors, reflecting back to us aspects of ourselves that require attention, healing, or growth. They illuminate our fears, our insecurities, our limitations, and in doing so, they offer us the opportunity to confront, to learn, to evolve. This process of self-discovery is itself a blessing in disguise, for without the catalyst of difficulty, we might remain unaware of the depth of our inner resources, the resilience of our spirit, and the capacity for courage that resides within us. Recognizing blessings in disguise teaches us patience and perseverance. It reminds us that life unfolds in stages, that understanding comes in layers, that clarity emerges over time, and that the full measure of a challenge's blessing may not be immediately apparent. In this patience, we develop endurance, resilience, and a deepened sense of trust in the unfolding of life. Blessings in disguise often come through the lens of perspective. When we shift our viewpoint, when we choose to see what was once perceived as negative in a new light, we uncover opportunities for learning, growth, and transformation. We begin to perceive the interconnectedness of experiences, the patterns woven into life's tapestry, and the subtle ways in which challenges shape us for future success, wisdom, and fulfillment. Life's challenges are also invitations to humility, to recognize that we are not the ultimate architects of our journey, that there is a power greater than our own, orchestrating the unfolding of events, guiding us, supporting us, and providing what we need when we need it. This humility opens our hearts to gratitude, to trust, to receptivity, and to the recognition of blessings that might otherwise go unnoticed. The lessons embedded in life's challenges are countless. They teach us compassion for ourselves and for others, empathy for those who suffer, patience for those who struggle, courage for those who face adversity, wisdom for those who seek understanding, and hope for those who despair. In embracing these lessons, we recognize that blessings are not always wrapped in comfort or convenience, but often in struggle, growth, and transformation. Each challenge carries within it a hidden gift, a lesson, an opportunity, a pathway to deeper awareness, greater empathy, stronger character, and more profound connection to the divine and to one another. By cultivating awareness, reflection, and openness, we learn to discern these blessings, to embrace them, and to integrate them into our understanding of life, ourselves, and the world around us. Recognizing blessings in disguise requires faith, a willingness to trust that what is not immediately apparent is still real, that what is hidden is still working, that the divine hand is at work even when we cannot see it. Faith allows us to step into the unknown with confidence, to navigate difficulty with grace, to approach challenge with courage, and to recognize opportunity where others see only obstruction. Life's blessings often arrive through unexpected channels. A setback may redirect us to a more fruitful path. A loss may create space for abundance. A failure may teach lessons that lead to greater wisdom. A heartbreak may open us to deeper love. A disappointment may prepare us for greater fulfillment. Each instance demonstrates that blessings are not always packaged in ways we recognize at first, and that what appears adverse may, in truth, be a blessing in disguise. Recognizing these blessings also fosters gratitude, not merely for what is easy or pleasant, but for the full spectrum of life experiences, including the challenging, painful, and unexpected. Gratitude nurtures joy, deepens resilience, strengthens relationships, and cultivates peace of mind. It enables us to see that even in difficulty, there is goodness. Even in suffering, there is growth. Even in loss, there is gain. And even in endings, there are beginnings. Life teaches us that what we perceive as misfortune is often a veil, a protective covering that hides opportunities, lessons, and growth that we are not yet ready to receive, and that in recognizing these hidden blessings, we expand our capacity for understanding, empathy, joy, love, and faith. Challenges are, in many ways, divine invitations to awaken, to see, to learn, to trust, and to grow. They call us to rise above self-pity, fear, and despair, and to embrace the possibility that every experience carries within it a seed of something greater, a spark of light, a path to transformation, and a doorway to blessings that were previously unseen. Recognizing blessings in disguise transforms not only our perception of life, but also our experience of it. We begin to see that life is not a series of obstacles to overcome, but a continuous flow of lessons, gifts, and opportunities for growth. We understand that the divine works in mysterious ways, orchestrating events, challenges, and encounters that serve our highest good. Even when we cannot comprehend the process in the moment, this recognition cultivates patience, perseverance, resilience, humility, gratitude, compassion, courage, hope, joy, and faith. It transforms the way we navigate difficulty, respond to setbacks, engage with others, and perceive our place in the world. Each challenge becomes an opportunity for revelation, for learning, for growth, for love, for gratitude, for trust, for connection, and for the recognition of blessings that might otherwise remain hidden. And in this recognition, we find meaning, purpose, and the assurance that nothing in life is wasted, nothing is without significance, and even the most painful experiences carry the potential for illumination, growth, and joy. Life's challenges teach us to embrace uncertainty with grace, to navigate the unknown with courage, to see opportunity where others see impossibility, to recognize growth where others see failure, and to perceive love where others see loss. In doing so, we cultivate wisdom, resilience, and insight, And we discover that life's blessings are often hidden precisely where we least expect them, in moments of challenge, struggle, and adversity. Recognizing blessings in disguise deepens our connection to the divine, reminding us that we are supported, guided, and loved even in our most difficult times, and that every challenge carries within it the potential for growth, insight, transformation, and grace. Life's challenges are the fertile soil in which the seeds of blessings are planted. With patience, awareness, faith, and openness, these seeds germinate, grow, and bear fruit, revealing opportunities, insights, and gifts that might otherwise have gone unnoticed, unappreciated, and unrealized. And in embracing these blessings, we cultivate a heart that is grateful, resilient, compassionate, joyful, wise, loving, courageous, hopeful, and deeply attuned to the divine flow of life, discovering that the very difficulties we once feared or resisted are, in truth, the vehicles through which blessings are revealed, lives are transformed, and spirits are awakened, deepened, and uplifted.